Hey everybody, it's Microplastic Messiah here, doing episode 3. This one's going to be probably a little different. I'll have some trigger warnings in advance that this one might be somewhat emotional. So, there's a certain event coming up soon, which I'll clarify later, but I'm going to start off with a story. So, one day, a few years ago, I was out biking with my daughter, and it was a great day. It was like a really beautiful day, like almost the perfect day. Like it was like gorgeous. We had this path that we used to go biking around. Had a lot of ups and downs and stuff. It was a lot of fun, but then like the road coming back to the house, it was like kind of a steep downhill, which was kind of sketchy, but she always handled it pretty well. It was fun. And then we came back to the house, and my wife was like, popped outside right away, and she's like, there's something, like your mom gave us a call, and she sounded pretty frantic. Or no, it wasn't my mom, it was a neighbor called, and she sounded pretty frantic, so you should probably give him a call. So I called the number that my neighbor gave me, and they said, oh, there was an accident, so you need to come out, and your mom needs some help with what's like dealing with this accident. So I'm like, okay. I told the wife, I'm like, yeah, I filled her in on the content of the phone call, and I'm like, don't worry about it. I'll just hop in the car. We'll go see what's going on. Like, yeah, we'll figure it out. So I get everything together. I changed, got in the car. I start driving out to my parents' place, and it was like 20-minute drive, so I had a little bit of time to like sit and think about what was going on. And I remember thinking like, this is really weird. Like the whole situation was pretty weird, but like I know my dad, he drove to work every day. It was like half hour, and he constantly was like either hitting deer or having near misses with deer all the time. So I'm like, probably has something to do with that, but the whole situation was really sketchy. So I'm like driving on this beautiful day over to my parents' house, and I'm like, man, I think this might have been a serious accident. Like, cause like, why is the neighbor calling, and why isn't my mom talking? So I'm like, maybe she's busy, or like, I had a ton of thoughts going through my head. I'm like, if it's a serious accident, why am I going to the house and not the hospital? So I kind of came to the conclusion that like, yeah, maybe he had passed away from like a car accident or something like that. So I was it's hard to explain, but I was starting to go through all the possible scenarios, and I'm like, yeah, he must have like either seriously injured himself or passed away in like a car accident or something like that. And I wasn't getting like emotional or anything about it. I was just trying to like go through all the scenarios in my head. So I pull into the small town that my parents were from, and like I pull around to the house, and I see that there's an ambulance and a police car, and I'm like, oh, I mean, on one hand, aren't I smart for figuring this out before I get there? But on the other hand, I'm like, ooh, this is probably not going to be good. So I park and I get out of the car, and I remember walking by one of the cops. Like there's two cops standing there. They just looked at me and kind of gave the tight lip nod. And I'm like, oh, this is probably not good. And yeah, so then my mom's standing there, and she just looked at me, and yeah, she wasn't like crying or anything. She was just kind of standing there. And I hug her, and I still don't really know what's going on, but she's like, sweetheart, your dad passed away, or I can't remember how she phrased it exactly, but she was like, yeah, dad's gone. And I'm like, oh, I kind of figured that's what this was all about. But then she said he hanged himself. And I was like, I remember that moment, because it felt like that was the moment where everything kind of fractured for me. Like, you never really know what you're going to go through. Obviously, when you go through, it's been like 5 years, so that's I've had a lot of time to process everything. But looking back on that day, it was like that was the moment where I feel like my mind or personality kind of split into two different people. There was, or yeah, basically people, where it was like the physical me that was in the moment doing and saying things, and then the part of my brain that was split off trying to process everything that was going on. So I remember thinking, I'm like, what the fuck did she just say? like, it took me a minute to process what she just said. And I'm like, he what? Like, I knew he had been going through some stuff. I don't want to get into too many specifics. I don't like dox myself or whatever, but yeah, he had been going through a lot of stuff. But I never, like, the day before, we had everybody over at the house, and like, we knew he had been going through some stressful stuff, but he seemed perfectly fine. And we had some normal conversations, and everyone seemed to have a great day. So it really blindsided us. So then I don't even remember exactly what happened, but we went in the house and I started slowly kind of getting filled in. I'm like, what's going on? Like, you're saying he hanged himself, but then I don't know if it was part of me was trying to cope. Like, I was like, okay, but did he succeed? Like, did someone find him and pull him down early and he's just like hiding somewhere? Like, where is he? Like, where did this happen? Because I was picturing it for some reason at work, because like, it was a work day, so he should have been at work. So I'm like trying to piece it all together. And I remember I had to go outside to grab my phone or something. It had already been like 40 minutes at this time, because I was talking to my mom, and her friend was there, as I recall. I went out to grab my phone, and I walked by the cops, and I just had to confirm with them, someone else. I was like, so can you just clarify, has he passed away? And they're like, oh yeah, he's gone. Like, they didn't say, oh yeah, but yeah. So I was like, oh, okay. And you never know how you're really going to process it at the time. But yeah, it was just kind of surprising, but I was so numb. I think I was just overloaded, So I grabbed my phone, and then there'd been quite a bit of time between, quite a bit of talking while I was trying to talk to my mom, but she was just pretty stone faced and couldn't really talk too much. She just kept looking at me and just being like, why did this happen? And I'm like, I don't have any answers for you. But then I realized I should probably check my phone. So I checked my phone, and my wife was understandably messaging me the whole time. And she's like, can you please tell me what's going on? Because I'm kind of freaking out. So I called her, and I told her, look, yeah, Dad passed away. He hanged himself. And yeah, I'm going to be here for a while I'm kind of figuring out what's going on. I love you, and I'll try and figure out more and let you know when I know. And yeah, I'll talk to you later, kind of thing. And went back in the house, and I needed to kind of figure out more details, because I was kind of getting it piecemeal while people were talking. And I guess what had happened was he had done it in his garage, which I didn't like. The whole time I had been picturing him doing it at work, but then I realized that he was still in there, 10 feet away from me the whole time, and I didn't realize. So that kind of changed things a bit, not realizing that I was right next to him the whole time. And shortly after, they came in and said, so we brought him down, which is not a fun sentence to hear. And do you want to go see him? And then, oh, fuck me. Isn't that a question, right? So I'm like, do I? And to my mind, I was like, look, you either have a choice to not, and then you might regret it. And then if you do it, you don't know if you're going to regret it or not. So it was more of a probability thing. I'm like, well, I guess I'll go. So I just put my shoes on, and I remember going in there, and it was a garage that smelled like a garage. But now every time I smell a garage, I'm just kind of brings me back there. But yeah, he was just, I remember he was just lying there, and it looked like he was sleeping. And they did the thing where they put his hands up on his chest. And yeah, it just looked like he was sleeping. I remember just like standing there. Yeah, just looking at him. I'm like, okay, I came in here, but what am I supposed, like, am I supposed, you know, like, what do I do? And I'm like, what's going on? It's such a surreal experience. It's like panic mixed with confusion and numbness because you're just, yeah. And then what now? Like, oh my God. So I just kind of took in the scene, I guess. And I remember just like kneeling down and looking at him, and I don't know, I pet his head because I don't know, I just pictured like movies and TVs and shows, like what, there's no formula for this. So I was just doing the closest approximation of what I could think of. And yeah. So then, yeah, I went back in the house, and then some phone calls needed to be made because people needed to be informed. And I knew my mom couldn't do it. I had realized that she had been the one to find him, so she was not in the mindset to really do that. So I ended up having to call my brother, he was out at the lake at the time, and I'm kind of a Band-Aid off person, so I called him. I'm like, dude, yeah, we need to talk. And he could tell from my voice, I think, that it wasn't good. And I remember saying, like, Dad passed and he hanged himself, and yeah, he was screaming. I still hear that from time to time too. And yeah, he was like, well, I'll make plans to come down. And I'm like, yeah, okay, love you, bye. And then I had to call my grandma. That one was probably the hardest one because, like, I love my grandma, but we don't talk a ton. Not as much as we probably should. But yeah, I called her and she seemed cheery to hear my voice until she heard me talking. I was like, hey, Grandma. And she was like, oh, God, what's going on? Because I think she knew what was going on, too. So, yeah. And I told her the same thing. I'm like, Dad's gone. He hanged himself in his garage. And I just remember her voice just dropping out. It was so bad. And yeah, she started crying, and it was just terrible. And then I'm like, sorry, Grandma, I gotta go. Like, there's a ton of stuff we gotta do. And I think my sister just pulled up too with my niece, and they had been there the night before. Like, it was not good. And yeah, they told my sister, my mom told my sister, like, I was a little too slow on that one, but she got real mad and started punching the pavement. So I had to grab her hand before she, like, completely destroyed her knuckles. And I remember my niece was screaming because someone had told her to. And then, yeah, there was a song from a band called Armor for Sleep called The Truth About Heaven. And in the lyrics of it, it says, don't believe that how's it go? Don't believe that the weather is perfect on the day that you die. And I remember thinking about that because, like, the weather that day was perfect. And yeah, that started 5 years of a lot of psychological, emotional trauma and journey. And it's been really hard. So the 5th year anniversary was in May, and at the beginning I was saying, there's a specific day coming up soon, and the 10th of September is Suicide Awareness Day. So it felt appropriate to do an episode where I talk about it. I've written this down a lot, and I've talked to therapists about it, but there's an episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer where I don't want to spoil it, but I mean, it's old if you haven't seen it by now. There's an episode where a major character, I'll say, passes away, and Buffy finds her. And if you ever want to, like, kind of understand how something like that goes, you should watch that episode because, yeah, it's pretty close. And yeah, I think it's just important. Like, so I did some presentations and stuff, got them all ready, recorded them, and then I was trying to find places to present them for suicide awareness. But a lot of them said, well, we don't want to present this because we want to focus more on how you heal from this kind of thing. But especially for people who haven't been through something like that, I think it's also important for them to understand the circumstances and possibly the feelings. Like, it's impossible to really feel it, and I think until you've been through it, but you don't come out on the other side as the same person. And I'm not saying I'm worse off. Like, it's been hard, I'm not gonna lie, but there's been positives that come from it. Like, it sounds weird, I'm not trying to glorify the act or anything like that at all. Like, it caused a lot of pain for a lot of people involved, and while I understand how he got to that point, like, I would trade everything that's happened since, any positive thing that's happened since, to bring him back. But I can't do that. So all I can do is take what happened and then try to make something good come of it. So a lot of what I've been trying to do in the background has been trying to do that, like spin it into something positive. And for me, a lot of that's been talking about it. So, like, they don't talk about how, you go through something like that, but then you wake up the next day and it's just another day, There's people all around just going through the day the same as it was the day before. And every day someone's going through the worst day of their life. And you might just be going to get groceries that day, just like any other day. And for a long time, I didn't have too many normal days like that. And it was a long time. I want to say it's only been in the last few months where I've had days where I got up and had any days where I didn't think about him. But I've been getting there. The worst of it is I've followed in his footsteps, kind of, job-wise. Again, not trying to dox myself too much, but yeah. So it's been a bit of a minefield trying to figure out. And it's made me reflect a lot on like myself and the other members of my family have been going through stuff. Because like, if you'd asked me when I was a kid, like, do you think it's possible for him to do that? Because even when we were growing, like, I would have said no, but like, even when we were growing up, it would there were people in our life who did that. And I remember he used to react so strongly to that. He's like, how could anybody do that kind of thing? And then for him to do it, of all people, like, it was, yeah, it really changed my mindset on it. And then it made me think of a lot of my other, like, male relatives who've had attempts and stuff. Because I've had other family members, too, who've had pretty near misses on attempts like that. So, like, I had to go back and, like, do some work. Like, I had a work trip I had to do still. Like, this was months later. I'm not saying it was, like, the next week or anything. But it was after a few months. Like, we had done the funeral, which unfortunately was during COVID. So we were still dealing with COVID at the time, too. And then, yeah, I had to go back and do some work stuff. And I remember I talked to my bosses and I was like, look, I'm going through all this stuff, and they really helped me out, like, gave me as much freedom. I'm really lucky in that regard. Like, my supervisors and stuff have always been really understanding, but I definitely dove into work as a coping mechanism too, which is a mixed bag. You have to be very careful about something like that because you can risk losing a lot of stuff if you go too hard, I think. I feel like I did my best. Kept a good middle ground. But, there's no real timeline either on healing from all this stuff. the first anniversary comes and you think, I'm doing better. And then by the third anniversary, you're like, am I? Like, it's like peeling an onion. Not to reference Shrek and stuff. Like, it's it's got a lot of layers, I'll say. And it feels like as soon as you think you're at the bottom of a layer, a whole new one crops up. So yeah, it was like 3 years later, I had started a whole new position, like at a different part of the country, and um, I was kind of stressed out because like moving that far is, stressful. And I kind of thought I was in a good place as far as all the mental health stuff, but then yeah, I just got too overwhelmed and I was burning out regularly. So then yeah, I finally realized I'm like, well, I really need to go and get this looked at. So I went to the doctors and saw a therapist and got on some medication for, like, I've always known I'm ADHD, but because of certain circumstances, I had to go unmedicated for a while. So when I talked to the doctors, they were like, well, the first thing we're going to do is get you back on your ADHD meds. And then I talked to therapists and they're like, well, okay, you got to kind of picture your mental health as like a cup of water. And when your cup's already full, something relatively small can make it overflow. And I really like that metaphor. And I use that a lot because it's true. Like, you know, people sometimes snap if there's something relatively small going on, and then that's kind of an indication that, hey, maybe there's some stuff in the background you got to start cleaning up. So then I spent the next year on like restricted medical for mental health. So I was trying to figure all that stuff out. And I got put on antidepressants too, like SSRIs. And I'd never been on that before. And that was really rough for the first month. I'm like, not gonna lie. But after that, like a lot of stuff started getting into more focus. And another thing too, it sounds weird, but TikTok really helped because like the algorithm is a lot of like, if you like this, you'll like that kind of thing. And at first it started with comedy and games, and then it eventually moved into like ADHD. So it was it diagnosed me by itself, kind of. And I'm like, well, of course I relate to that. I was already diagnosed. I know that one. But then it started moving more towards like autism content. And I'm like, oh, I don't know about that. Like, I don't know much about that. But then the more I saw of it, the more I was relating to it. And then I've gotten into a lot of groups now lately of called ADHD, where it's like a mix. If you have ADHD and autism, and it's like a spectrum, right? So you kind of lean more towards one or the other. But yeah, I got in with those communities, and for the first time in like a really long time, my whole life basically, I found a group of people that kind of thought the same way as me, and we started speaking a lot of the same language. And yeah, now I finally have some words to explain a lot of things that didn't make sense throughout my childhood. And it's really helped me. Like, I feel like, especially over the last year or so, I've come a long way just as a person, but I'm not gonna lie, it's been a journey. It's been tough. Like, I've had a lot of hard times, and I don't always have the best coping mechanisms either. Like, I like me a drink or two, but there's been times where I've overdone it, but I haven't had a drink in like weeks, and I don't even crave it really. But I think it's because I've been becoming a bit more of a whole person. But unfortunately, it took a rather large catalyst for me to do that. So I think that's why I felt like I wanted to record this right now, because I've been trying to get my story out there, and the ways I've been trying to do it so far haven't worked out. And with, like I say, the World Suicide Awareness Day coming up, I just wanted to record something to put out there in the hopes that maybe, I really hope that people who are going through something and they might be thinking of, ending it, might hear something like this and realize, you're affecting a lot of people's lives. And even if you think no one cares about you, I do. And if hearing this can make you like just take a break, and because like it's thrown my whole life completely, just it really just threw my life into chaos for a long time. So what's really been helping me is I learned about nervous system regulation. So, and various mental health conditions, like there's ADHD, autism, bipolar disorder, BPD, OCD, that kind of stuff. There's no shame in looking into that stuff. And like, I like the neurodivergent and neurotypical terminology because it's a lot different than when I was growing up and you were just crazy or not crazy or normal, The whole idea of being normal sounds weird to me now. My last few episodes have all been pretty political, and I feel like I've seen people say that, there's a lot of people going to therapy these days, which is good. But sometimes maybe it's not so much that there's anything wrong with you, it's that you're being forced to live in a world that isn't really working out well for you. And maybe that's just because you haven't been able to figure out how you fit into it. So if you can find ways to do that, like find a group or do some like inner shadow work, I think they call it, is like looking at what's going on and try and find the language to explain to not even other people. It's more important that you understand kind of if you're struggling, you need to identify the struggles and you need to be able to label them. I find like people seem to be cautious about labels, because there can be stigma around labels. But to my mind, finding the labels for what I've gone through, like honestly, if I like going through all this, I learned so much that I wish I could have talked to him about, because it applies to him too. A lot of this stuff is hereditary, so. And I'm pretty sure he was pretty hard on the autism spectrum too, but he didn't know it. And he never really got the coping mechanisms that I did to deal with that. And I'm really hoping that this healing process, I can not only help myself, but I've already used it to help my kids. Like a lot of the stuff I've learned about myself, I see in my kids, and I've tried to use the language to help them so that they can have a better time of it too. So yeah. So yeah, this is a bit of a different episode. I might only keep this one on the Spotify's, maybe do it as a special. But yeah, I hope if you listen to this, you'll take some time. Oh, I was talking about nervous system. So you have to picture your nervous system. Like if you ever look at a picture of what a nervous system is, it starts with your brain and it's literally just your nerves. So I started like cannabis became legal in Canada in 2017. I started trying it out. And at first I thought it was giving me the shakes, but then I realized like I was looking at my hands and they weren't actually shaking. So I realized what was going on is that my nervous system had been so dysregulated that I had had trembles for a long time. And it made sense because I've always been kind of clumsy. But now I realize that it was because of this trembling thing that was going on. And the cannabis was actually helping it stop, because I remember I saw a video of a guy who had seizures or like Parkinson's, some kind of disorder like that, where he was really shaky. And then as soon as he started taking cannabis, it would calm that. So, yeah, I noticed that like there was also, I follow Twitter or X, whatever they call it now, channel. It's like nature, like damn nature, you scary kind of thing. And I remember there was a little monkey and he was a runt of a, what do you call them? Like pack of monkeys, litter of monkeys, murder of monkeys. And, yeah, he had been pretty abused and he had a fraction of his scalp missing because of like the bigger monkeys picking on him. and he'd go and try and get food, and they'd smack him around. Like, he got a little bit of food, but he was just shaky. And it's like, I could see that in myself because like as a younger kid, I've mentioned in the other things that I had sound sensitivities, and like it caused a lot of debilitating headaches and pain. And I've read that like people, I'm probably getting a little too TMI here, but some people on this certain spectrum have bowel issues, and I did when I was a kid too, so I probably didn't smell that great. So I wasn't very popular or anything by any means. And like, yeah, I could see why I would become a shaky kind of nervous kid. I was pretty skinny too, and not really big on sticking up for myself. I had self-esteem problems and stuff, and I think all that combined to make me basically like a runt monkey, kind of nervous. But going through all this, like, understanding and learning about myself and my conditions has really helped me to calm myself and find some healing. I listen to this frequency healing music on YouTube to help me sleep. And yeah, no, like I feel like things are getting better. To what end, I don't really know. It's my hope that just by kind of learning this stuff, I can pass it on to others, and it'll help them improve their lives. Cause like, and I can't say that this audio or what I'm doing right now is really going to help anybody, but I hope it does. But if I can help someone just empty their cup a little bit so that the challenges of life don't overflow, then, at least I can say I tried. That's all I really want. Yeah, so thanks for joining me on this weird episode. This one's going to be even shorter, but I'll probably go back to my regularly scheduled kind of like political rants, because God knows there's enough going on. But yeah, I wish you all the best, and thanks for coming. Bye.